March 6, 1944. 23,000 feet over Germany. 12 enemy fighters closing in. One bomber already hit. And in the tail, a gunner who's about to do the unthinkable. They told him to wait. He chose to attack. What happened in the next 4 minutes would change air combat forever. March 6, 1944, 23,000 feet above Germany, a formation of B-17 flying fortresses pushed toward their target through freezing air and scattered cloud. In the tail position of one bomber, Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan scanned the horizon through layers of frost-rimmed glass. He had done this flight before. Same route, same escort, same feeling that death was circling somewhere just out of sight. Below him, flak blossomed in black bursts. Ahead, sunlight glinted on wings that weren't friendly. 12 Messerschmitt Bf-109s were forming up for attack. The gunners knew what was coming. A coordinated run from high and rear, fast and brutal. Every manual, every training lecture, every officer had said the same thing. Hold your fire, stay disciplined, conserve ammunition. Donovan thought otherwise. He had watched too many fortresses go down waiting for permission to shoot. He understood that hesitation was death. So when the fighters began their dive, he ignored the rulebook. He tracked the lead Bf-109 long before it was in range and squeezed the trigger. At first, nothing. Then sparks, smoke, panic. The German formation split in confusion. Donovan didn't stop. He kept firing, short, controlled bursts, shells arcing into the sky at impossible distance. The air filled with brass casings and disbelief. For 4 minutes, one tail gun turned from a defensive weapon into an assault. When it was over, the sky was littered with wreckage. The radio stayed silent. No one could believe what they had just seen. From that moment on, the man in the back of Hell's Fury wasn't just another gunner. He was something else entirely, the first to fight the enemy on his own terms. Before the Air Force, before the war, before he became a legend in the tale of a bomber, Michael Donovan was just another kid from South Boston. The kind of neighborhood where you learn 2 things early: how to fight and how to get back up when you lost. His father was a dock worker. His mother worked nights at a textile plant. The Great Depression had emptied pockets and hardened people. Boys grew up quick, and the streets taught lessons no classroom ever could. Donovan wasn't tall, but he was fast, sharp, and mean when he had to be. He fought because that's what Southie boys did, with fists, with bottles, with pride. He didn't dream about flying. He dreamed about getting out. When the news from Europe started to fill the radio, when words like Luftwaffe, invasion, and London Blitz became dinner table talk, Donovan didn't hesitate. He enlisted in 1942, barely 19, and told the recruiter he wanted to fight, not push paper. The Air Force Army Air Forces didn't promise glory. It promised altitude, noise, and danger. He passed gunnery training at Kingman, Arizona, where men learned to aim at moving targets from a moving platform while moving through the air. The math alone broke most recruits. Donovan wasn't good at math. He was good at instinct. While others memorized manuals, he trusted motion, the rhythm of a dive, the split second between seeing and shooting. Instructors noticed. He wasn't the most disciplined, but he hit targets others missed. They started calling him Mad Mike, half joke, half warning. He learned quickly that bomber life wasn't about medals, it was about surviving the next mission. Gunners were the thin line between a crew coming home and a plane vanishing over enemy lines. The job sounded simple: protect the bomber, shoot anything with a black cross. In practice, It was hell. Every man had his position: nose, waist, top, or tail. The tail gun was the loneliest, separated from the rest of the crew by a narrow crawl tunnel, sitting backward, cut off by engine noise and wind. You didn't see faces. You saw death coming first. Donovan liked it that way, alone, focused, responsible for the rear, his kind of fight. But something bothered him from the beginning. Training told them to conserve ammunition, to fire only when the enemy was close enough to fill the sight ring. The logic was sound on paper. Keep control, stay coordinated, shoot when the chance is best. But in the real sky, logic didn't always work. He watched formation after formation take losses before anyone fired a single burst. The German fighters came in fast, tight, disciplined, and they always struck first. The bombers responded late, defensive, reactive. To Donovan, it felt like waiting to die. So he began to experiment. On training runs, he would test his timing, adjusting his bursts, tracking targets farther out, playing with range and lead angles. He didn't care if instructors called it wasteful. He wasn't wasting, he was learning. He studied the enemy tactics, the head-on attacks, the slashing dives, the coordinated rolls. Every move had a rhythm, a habit. And if you could interrupt that rhythm, even for a second, you could break their confidence. He started keeping notes, not on performance reports, but on instinct. How long it took for the fighters to form up, how quickly they reacted when tracer fire appeared early. He began to see patterns and weaknesses. In the barracks, others mocked his obsession. "You can't scare a Bf-109, Mike," a gunner joked. Donovan disagreed. "You don't have to scare the plane," he said quietly. "You scare the pilot." To him, gunnery wasn't just mechanics, it was psychology. The German pilots were professionals, yes, but they were also human. They expected bombers to stay defensive, predictable. What if a bomber suddenly attacked first, firing before they were even in position? That would throw off everything they'd been trained for. He knew it was risky. The tail guns had limited ammo. The range was too far for effective hits. But it wasn't about the kill, it was about confusion. If one tail gunner could disrupt an entire attack wave, he might save dozens of planes. He kept testing the idea quietly. During missions, he'd open fire a split second earlier than everyone else. Sometimes he'd miss. Sometimes a fighter would break formation. Each time, he learned something. By the end of 1943, Donovan had become known among his squadron for his unorthodox approach. Commanders didn't officially approve, but they couldn't argue with the results. His crews came home more often than not. There was something unnerving about him, a calmness before combat, a ritual of checking his guns twice, adjusting the feed belts just so, whispering the same line before every sortie. Make them blink first. To his crewmates, it was madness. To Donovan, it was strategy. He believed fear was a weapon, one that could be turned back on the enemy. When the 8th Air Force prepared for one of its largest raids over Germany, Regensburg, Schweinfurt, Berlin, Donovan's ship, Hell's Fury, was assigned to the low squadron, the most vulnerable position in the formation. He didn't flinch. He had been waiting for a chance to prove what he already knew, that defense could become offense if you had the nerve to pull the trigger first. That chance came on March 6, 1944. By then, Michael Donovan was no longer just a gunner. He was a man with a theory, a weapon with a conscience, and an idea the Air Force wasn't ready to understand. The rest of the crew saw another mission. Donovan saw an opportunity to turn survival into strategy and fear into doctrine. He would show them all the Germans, the commanders, even the sky itself, that sometimes the only way to stay alive was to stop being afraid to die. March 6, 1944. 23,000 feet above Germany. The sky looked clean from a distance, blue, endless, calm. But in that calm was chaos waiting to happen. Hell's fury flew in the rear formation of the 390 bomb group, the low element, the easy target. They were bound for Berlin. It was supposed to be a routine strike, routine meaning 200 miles of flak, fighters, and death. From his glass bubble in the tail, Michael Donovan could see the horizon stretching like steel. His guns, twin .50 caliber
wind. The bombers came home. The crews disbanded. And like smoke from an engine cooling on the runway, the names of the men who fought there began to fade. In the official records, Michael Donovan was listed as missing in action. No body, no grave. Just a set of coordinates over the North Sea and a line on a paper report: aircraft failed to return. But among those who survived, his story never stopped flying. Every airbase from Framlingham to Thorpe Abbotts had its own version, whispered in barracks, passed along over beer and cigarette smoke. The mad gunner who fired first. The one who scared 12 Messerschmitts out of the sky. To the veterans, it wasn't just a tale. It was a symbol. Because in Donovan's Defiance, they saw themselves, ordinary men trapped in impossible odds, surviving not because of training or luck, but because they refused to freeze when it mattered most. After the war, the U.S. Air Force gathered hundreds of debriefings, looking for patterns to build the next generation of aerial doctrine. Buried deep in one of those reports was a paragraph, unremarkable at first glance. Observation: early engagement by bomber defensive positions significantly reduces enemy attack coordination. Recommend continued study of preemptive firing techniques. That single sentence, unsigned, uncredited, carried the essence of Donovan's legacy. Over the next decade, his principle of psychological disruption evolved quietly inside training manuals and tactical briefings. In Korea, turret gunners used modified versions of his timing method. In Vietnam, helicopter door gunners learned to open fire before ambushes could form. Each generation inherited a piece of his thinking, often without knowing his name. And that's how real legends live, not on medals or monuments, but in habits, instincts, doctrines that outlast the men who created them. Historians who later studied the Schweinfurt-Berlin raids noticed something strange about that March 6th mission. The Luftwaffe formations that engaged Donovan's bomber group reported confusion and radio breakdowns mid-attack, pilots claiming unexpected long-range fire and impossible reaction timing. To this day, nobody can confirm exactly how many planes Donovan destroyed that day. Some records say 5, others say 12. The number doesn't matter. What matters is what happened in those 4 minutes. That single act of defiance that shifted an entire mindset. Because before Donovan, tail gunners were the last line of defense. After Donovan, they became the first. In 1947, the U.S. Air Force introduced its new active response gunnery curriculum. Its opening line read, "Never allow the enemy to dictate the start of combat." It was almost word for word what Donovan had said years earlier in that smoky debriefing room. "I didn't want them to start the fight." The manual didn't name him, but among old bomb group veterans, everyone knew. By the time the jet age arrived, most of Donovan's generation was gone. Tail turrets gave way to radar locks, missiles, and electronic countermeasures. The war became cleaner, faster, more distant. But the principle he lived by, the psychology of aggression, the courage to act first, survived. in every cockpit. Decades later, in a small museum outside Cambridge, a B-17 tail turret sits on display. The metal is faded, the glass scratched, the twin barrels sealed with rust. On the side, carved faintly into the frame with a pocket knife, are two words: Mad Mike. No one knows who wrote it. Maybe a crewmate, maybe a mechanic, maybe the man himself. But to the volunteers who keep that museum alive, the name has become something of a legend, a symbol of a forgotten philosophy that still defines courage. Visitors walk past it without much notice. They take photos, move on to the next exhibit. But sometimes, late in the day, when the light hits the turret just right, you can almost see what he saw: the endless sky, the approaching specks of death, the decision that would change everything. For storytellers, Donovan's tale is cinematic. A man alone in a glass bubble, rewriting the rules of survival one trigger pull at a time. But for the men who flew with him, it was something deeper. It wasn't about heroism. It was about clarity. That frozen instant when the mind stops shaking and the heart decides. Every soldier faces that moment, in every war, in every age. Do you wait, or do you move first? Donovan moved first. And that's why 80 years later, his ghost still sits in that turret, invisible but present, whispering the same truth to anyone willing to listen. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to fire through it. Today, when modern pilots study aerial engagement psychology, they talk about preemption, initiative, tempo control. They use charts, data, metrics. But the soul of those theories, that instinct to seize control, comes from men like Donovan. He didn't have instruments. He had gut instinct and conviction. He didn't have a name in textbooks. He had 12 seconds of chaos that became 4 minutes of history. And those 4 minutes rewrote how warriors thought about fear itself. The men who trained under him went on to teach thousands more. Their students became instructors, commanders, tacticians. The ripple spread from Europe to the Pacific, from bombers to fighters, from propellers to jets. Generations later, a young Air Force cadet studying aerial history would stumble upon the phrase preemptive engagement doctrine and wonder where it began. Some would trace it to 1944. A few would dig deeper. And somewhere, buried in the margins of old combat reports, they'd find his name, barely legible, written in pencil. SSGT Michael Donovan, 401 Bomb Group. That's all it said. No medals, no summary, no fanfare. Just a name and a legacy. In the end, that's what history really is. Not just victory or defeat, but the quiet echoes of the men who refused to be ordinary. Michael, Mad Mike, Donovan didn't live to see peace, but because of him, thousands of others did. And maybe that's the truest measure of a hero. Not the noise he makes when he fires, but the silence he leaves behind when he's gone. In the decades that followed the war, the world changed faster than anyone could imagine. Engines grew quieter, jets replaced propellers, and the sky, once the wild frontier of men like Michael Donovan, became a sterile domain of data and distance. Radar screens, missile locks, automated targeting. But the spirit that powered those first gunners never truly disappeared. It just evolved. Somewhere in every cockpit, deep inside every pilot who's ever faced a split-second decision, the ghost of Donovan still whispers the same lesson: don't wait. Because in that heartbeat between hesitation and action, lives are decided. In 1951, during the Korean War, a young tail gunner aboard a B-29 Superfortress recorded a strange note in his after-action report. Opened fire early on inbound MiGs. They broke off before engagement. Crew returned without damage. The analyst reviewing the report circled one line in red ink and wrote a single word beside it: Donovan. Nobody in that unit had ever met him. Most had never even heard his full story. But they all knew the myth, the nameless gunner from the old bomber groups who'd fought the Luftwaffe his own way. The legend outlived the man. By the Vietnam era, the lesson had become part of doctrine, though phrased differently, refined with science. Engage preemptively. Seize tempo. Disrupt initiative. It all sounded polished, modern, professional, but at its heart, it was the same thing Donovan discovered at 23,000 feet over Germany. Fear loses to motion. Every fighter pilot, every helicopter gunner, every door operator who ever chose to fire first, consciously or not, carried a fragment of that truth. Even today, in the age of drones and remote warfare, where soldiers guide machines from thousands of miles away, the decision remains human. Someone still has to choose the moment to act. Someone still has to trust their instinct. In 1979, a declassified Air Force training manual included a short, anonymous case study titled "Aggressive Defense in World War II Bomber Units." It described an unnamed gunner who initiated early engagement to destabilize enemy formation.